It is a great day to be alive, and I am so thankful for God, Jesus Christ, who lives in us. Today's video is titled XRP and the Tsunami Alert for Possible World War III Timeline. Before we get started, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing that I'm sharing is financial advice. I'm simply sharing dreams, visions, and interpretations that I feel God has given me as it relates to crypto. Now, let's get into the video. So I want to go back to a dream that I shared in a previous video. This dream is about the tall doors with the colors blue and yellow. I'm not going to go through every detail of this dream, but I will say that in this dream, I heard the Spirit of the Lord speaking through me, and I heard myself say that a war is coming. I also saw what I believe was World War III partly covered, and this is how I saw it in the dream. In this dream, I could also see water falling down the middle of the door, and I had an understanding that a tsunami was coming. Based on what God has shown me in the past about the colors of blue and yellow, I understood that this door had to do with the Ukraine and Russia war. So I concluded that this World War III would have something to do with Russia and Ukraine. And here is the video where I shared this particular dream in its entirety. It will be the video that is titled "The New Revealed Within the Old." So check out those two videos if you have not seen them already. So all the dreams that I've had pertaining to the Russia-Ukraine war has been specifically about Putin. One in particular that I've shared a lot of things that God has given me insight about when it comes down to the market crashes has to do with the Baltimore, Ohio dream. In this dream, I saw Putin. He was upset. He was angry. But getting to the research behind this dream, God's given me understanding that trains in my dream represents a market crash, and that is what I saw in this dream. I saw a train. It had to do with a train station. My research about Baltimore, Ohio, had to do with train stations, and a connection that it had to the October 29th, 1929 market crash date. During this time, there was the Great Depression. I feel that this is depicting future economic crisis that we may see if it comes down to us being involved in a World War III. So in this Baltimore, Ohio train dream about Putin, I was given a date based on someone's birthday, August 6th, and that date was when we saw the Japan market crash that had to do with the carry trade issues that were going on. I believe that there is going to be a second market crash as it relates to this dream. More information that I received, God was showing me more things as it relates to Putin. So looking at this second coming market crash, I have made a connection based on this research. So as I began to do my research to see how Putin was connected to Baltimore, Ohio, I found out that there's a place called Russia, Ohio, and it is 2 hours away from Baltimore, Ohio. So putting the two together, the first letter of Ohio and Moscow stood out to me simply because a few weeks earlier, God had given me a date of April the 13th. And on April the 13th, I was expecting a crash to take place. And the crash that took place was a crypto coin called Mantra. And the ticker for that is OM. This coin dropped 80% within an hour. Again, that was April the 13th. Moving forward back to Russia, Ohio and Russia, Moscow, I saw this after the fact. So when I put both together, Russia, Ohio and Russia, Moscow, and saw OM, I thought about this particular coin. And so my thought process is, okay, God, is this a gauge, the drop, the crash of this coin? Is this a gauge for what's coming in the next market crash? The one that will involve Putin as it relates to war, possibly World War III. And here's the video where I share the April 13th date. This was the date that God had given me some type of crash. And on that day, it ended up being the Mantra coin. Something else interesting that I found out about Russia, Ohio, is that the flag is similar to Russia, Moscow's flag. So looking at these colors, seeing the similarities, I feel that God wanted me to focus on these flags. So what I did was I used those colors to derive a date. And the date that I derived was August the 12th. And this date I added to a list of dates, derived dates that I shared in previous videos. But the question here becomes, should we look to hear news pertaining to Putin and the Ukraine war in some type of connection with World War III, news about World War III. Again, that date is August the 12th. Now, in the Baltimore, Ohio dream, I heard Putin say something. He said the timeline has been moved up. He was upset. He was very angry, and he was trying to speak English. And he said the timeline has been moved up. Why is this important? Well, to answer that question, we have to go back to those derived dates, specifically July 13th. And here are those derived dates. I've put checks by those that have already passed. I did videos on what actually happened on those dates. So all those videos, if you want to go back and check those out, they're there. But here where I have my red arrow pointing to August the 12th, that date has been on this list of derived dates. But we want to look at July 13th, the one that has to do with a war is coming, the yellow and blue doors, that July 13th, because that had to do with news being heard on July 13th about something to do with Russia and Ukraine. And so here are the videos where I shared those dates. And here's the video where I share what actually happened on July 13th. On July 13th, news came out that Trump was to make major Russia address on Monday. So that was the July 13th news about Russia. Then on the 14th, we heard about the threats of severe tariffs that will be placed on Russia if the war did not end within 50 days. So that would have been about September 2nd, I think. Again, in the dream, Putin said the timeline has been moved up. He was angry. Well, in the news recently, we heard that Trump cut the deadline from 50 days down to 10 or 12 days. The timeline had been moved up. Trump cuts deadline for Putin to reach Ukraine peace deal to 10 or 12 days. So now we're looking at a date of, I think, August the 8th. I know it was 10 to 12, but I think I've seen August the 8th as that particular date. After this timeline was moved up, the former president of Russia had something to say about it. Number 2 is what stood out to me. His post on X, it says, each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war. That reminded me of the backwards flag, something that I've shared with you guys many times about a backwards flag represents marching towards war. So when I read that, I thought about that particular statement. And then, of course, there were articles relating to World War III. And then, of course, that former Russian president having something to say about Trump's ultimatum. And this brings us to the tsunami portion of that dream. Keeping in mind that this dream, again, is about Russia and Ukraine, the colors blue and yellow. Just the other day, we heard that an earthquake off of Russia triggered a tsunami that set off alerts across Pacific and Japan and US. And then there was a volcano that erupted after 475 years. I don't know if that number means something, but after 475 years, this volcano erupted in Russia and it triggered a tsunami warning. I believe that the news about these tsunamis that we're hearing, things starting in Russia and causing a tsunami, represents a timeline. It's a stamp. When you hear about a tsunami as it relates to Russia, this means that there's going to be more news about this war, possibly World War III that's coming. And it has all to do with Russia and what's going on between Russia and Ukraine right now. And I want to say a day or two after the earthquake in Russia that triggered that tsunami that hit Japan and all of that, news came out that Trump orders nuclear submarines move near Russia after the comments that were made by their former Russian president. And so that was big news. It was August the 1st. So a few days after that tsunami took place. Again, that tsunami being a timestamp that something is getting ready to happen. This war is coming. And lastly, if you have not seen my last video, the Eagles versus Bears, or in other words, the US versus Russia, I shared a lot of findings in that video, as well as a date, a possible date that we may hear more about this World War III, possible World War III. And that date was November the 28th. If you have not seen that video, I encourage you to check it out. Now, getting to August the 12th. Again, waiting to hear news about Russia and Ukraine, Putin, and possibly World War III. Well, this August 12th date also connects to something to do with XRP. A dream that I shared in this video had to do with me looking at an old computer. And on this old computer, I saw candles moving upward on this particular chart. The lines were white, and whatever this coin was, it was taking off. I saw 70 cents, and then I saw $7, and then I saw $75. I saw my sister in this dream. She was standing watching what I was watching. To hear that dream in its entirety, you would have to go back and check out that video. I think it's toward the end of that video. But for now, I want to focus on the beginning of this dream when I saw 70 cents, $7, and then $75. So before I get to why I think this is XRP, I want to take a step back and take a look at what's new. Based on this old computer that I saw in this dream, I began to look into IBM and IBM's first PC. And it was released on August the 12th, 1981. Well, my sister, she was born in 1981. Her birthday is August the 27th. So same year, same month, different date. My sister in this dream also holds XRP. She's the only person in my family that I know that holds XRP. So that was one indication that this dream was about XRP. But then I decided to do another test. I decided to do the test that I do using colors. And so XRP is represented by blue and blue. And so I added 80 days to the date that I had this dream. So February the 9th, I added 80 days and I ended up with the date of April the 30th. So was there major news that came out about XRP on this particular date? I began to look and I saw that the SEC approves ProShares Trust XRP ETF for public launch on April the 30th, 2025. So yes, major news came out about XRP, or something happened to do with XRP. And so I took this as a second form of confirmation that this dream was about XRP. However, because of this article talking about XRP ETFs, I am putting things together thinking, okay, if this is about XRP and I see it move from 70 cents to $7, $75, what's going to make it move this way outside of regulations, which is very important? We're looking at ETFs, we're looking at spot ETFs. So I think that the connection between this dream and this particular article lets me know that something is going to take place along the lines of an ETF, spot ETF. And so that would bring XRP, I believe, along with regulations, up to $7. But that 70 cents is what had me a little bit stumped. So I began to look back at the connections. August 12th, the Putin, World War III, Baltimore, Ohio, Mantra coin dropping 80%. August 12th is connected to that date. August 12th seems to be connected to XRP in some way. If news comes out, if something happens where we hear something about World War III on August the 12th, this could bring XRP down to 70 cents. And I'll show you guys the math in a little bit. So it would definitely take some type of market crash to bring XRP down to 70 cents. Now, this is not far-fetched simply because this has happened to me before. In 2024, I had a dream, and in this dream, XRP, my mom was buying XRP for 50 cents. Where during this time, XRP was above 50 cents. And so in order for XRP to come back down to that price, there will have to be some type of crash or drop in the market. And so I had this dream again on July 24th, 2024. And a few days later, August 6th, that date given to me in that Baltimore, Ohio dream, August 6th came along, the Japan carry trade market crash, whatever happened, and XRP hit 50 cents and I think like 48-ish, something like that. So again, I've seen this. I've been given a warning about a price for XRP, and then a crash happens, and then it hits that price and a little bit below. So now thinking about August 12th as it relates to the Baltimore, Ohio dream, the Mantra coin, Mantra dropping 80%, I begin to think about XRP highest price, which was $3.66. 80% of that would be $2.92. Subtracting $2.92 from $3.66 will give me 72 cents. That is very close to what I saw in this dream, seeing this coin moving up from 70 cents, hitting $7, and then $75. And so here again are the two dreams with the August 12th date As you can see here, I've also added August 27th to the XRP IBM side for that dream because my sister's birthday is August the 27th. Maybe we'll hear something about an ETF. Maybe we'll see XRP hit that $7 price point. This is just things that I'm praying about, things that I'm trying to piece together based on these dreams. And then again, November 28th, as it relates to Putin, the World War III, and the dream about the Bears versus the Eagles. So let's continue to pray. We are always praying for a better outcome. Avoiding war at any cost is always better. And that's what we're praying about. We're praying that this war, World War III, does not take place. I'll take talks about it any day. I'll take news articles about it any day. But to avoid it, for God to totally cause us to avoid it, is what I'm praying about. So let us touch and agree. I know that God is able. That is all that I have for this video. Until the next one, God bless.